Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this broadcast. I'm Thomas Fessa, my friends, and this is Disclosure Tonight. Happy Saturday, September 14th, 2024, as we all come together as a community to talk about those things that our government doesn't want us talking about. Talk about those things from science fiction. Yes, folks, talk about those things. Well, you know, the X-Files, what things are we talking about? We're talking about the things that you can go out and see over your house in some evenings, but you just need to go outside and look up. What are we talking about? We're talking about good old-fashioned UFOs here in Disclosure Tonight. Before I get any further into this introduction that I was not planning on doing, I want to welcome you all to our Saturday show. Yes, I know the title card on YouTube says we've got Robert Salas is going to be on tonight. Something's up with Robert. Something's up with his phone, maybe. So we've reached out to him, and hopefully I've got a beautiful introduction we've got together for him to welcome him on to talk about his perspective on disclosure and where we're at. But he's not here right now, so he'll be back eventually. We've heard that one before. On that note, let's go ahead and I didn't start. Yeah, I did start the sound effects machine. Let's get this up here. Well, that's a bit loud. Let's go ahead and welcome in our audience. Who do we have out there, folks? Let's go ahead and take a look. We've got Andrew Donnelly all the way from Northern Ireland. Andy W. Eddie's here, along with Idaho Strong, J-Cat, Kathy, Kelly Broutnos, Piercing Blue Eyes. Liliana Tuna just popped up on the radar, along with Metal Gaming. Niles Guy's here. Good to see you, Niles Guy. Pete Liebel's around, along with Reality Check, VIP. Stephen Forbes Jr.'s around. Pete Liebel's here. Good to see you, Pete. Tetz made it in, along with that, Patrick. And, of course, the Chromosome Cowboy. How about that? But it's not just about our chat. It's also about our friends and panel in the back. Remember, folks, if you have something to say, have a question, go ahead and remember to follow the link at the top of every show's chat, and we're happy to go ahead and incorporate you as long as you're not a troll. Let's go. Why did I say that? Why did I say that? But anyway, let's come together as a community and have some fun. And who do we have in the back? Let's take a look. Well, first of all, we've got our friend coming all the way from Bristol, United Kingdom. Let's welcome in our very own Andy W. How's it going, Andy?
Hey, Thomas, apart from I broke my headphones, so I'm back to me earbuds. I hope you can hear me.
Oh, perfectly, yeah.
Brilliant. Worked. I literally had to link them just before. I think I've stood on the end of me thing.
Yeah. Hopefully you didn't break the port on your laptop.
No. I think the thing that goes into the port, I don't know what they're called. But,
that should be no, yes.
Yes. I think I stood on that, or it's been stood on. So yeah,
there you go.
Emergency measures.
I got
Good
it,
to
my
be
friend.
here, mate.
It's wonderful to have you here, my friend. This show's going to be interesting because we had a full slate of talking to Robert today, but you know what? We'll figure it out as we go along like we usually do. Also in the back.
Always do, mate.
Yeah. Also in the back, we have our dear friend Hollywood Harold, also known in the chat as Reality Check. How you doing, my friend Harold?
I'm feeling like Shania Twain today, Thomas, man. Got dressed up for nothing, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? You look great, my friend. We appreciate the bling, appreciate the flash, and, of course, the setup in the back. Thank you for being here, Harold. You are a great contributor to this show, and I am privileged to call you a friend. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Also in the back, we have our remote viewing targeter. Maybe we can get some more info out of here tonight since we have some time, probably. Let's welcome in our very own Laura Campbell, who's a remote viewing targeter. How's it going, Laura?
It's going great. Every day, Thomas, there's new news. And I guess if we have nothing to talk about, we can revisit the Nazca, what they call mummies, but the recent changeover with the body of Maria being taken by the Ministry of Culture.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things. They have laws there to protect those kind of antiquities and different stuff. And when you have people like Hami Musan coming in from other countries trying to abscond with this material, I can see why, if they consider it a national treasure, why they don't want modern day grave robbers to be taking it and running out of the country without the proper, laws in place. Because think about all the stuff that goes on in Egypt right now and other areas where they're trying to repatriate all the old antiquities and bring them back to the country. It makes sense, doesn't it?
I hope so. Keep your fingers crossed that they said there's going to be some news coming out soon.
Well, don't forget, we're also going to be hearing eventually something going on in the House of Representatives with Representative Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna, who seem to be lining up behind this stuff. So I know a lot of people, and even including myself, is saying, hey, there isn't a there. But there's a slight chance that something could be there. And rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater, let's strain it out and see what we've got.
Correct. It's the different ones that you have to look at, not the little ones. We're talking about Maria.
Yeah. Oh, Maria, what a wonderful name. Sometimes with a name like Maria, you just want to leave it dead and buried. Thanks for being here today. Oh, you look in the back. We haven't seen her in a while, but she's back. And again, she's here to join our show today. Let's welcome Ms. Cussout. How's it going, Ms. Cussout?
It's going great, Thomas. It's good to be here.
Great to have you here. And if we look at that, the man who wanted us to see a video last night about what was going on with China. That was a good one, actually. We've got an interesting video on that. Are you with us, Nick? Can you hear us? Earth to Nick. 3, 2. Last night he was on the ball. Before he could even get the first syllable's name out, he called himself out. But let's move on to our friend from Southern California. It's the place he ought to be. Mr. Faze Will. How's it going, Will?
Hey, Thomas. Good to be here. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Looks like you've got a nice, sunny blue skies. What's the temperature in LA right now?
Oh, I don't know. Let me check. Let's see here what we got. It's going to be here. Let's see.
78, 76.
80 degrees. 80
degrees. How wonderful. It is 60 degrees, cloudy, high humidity here in the Pacific Northwest today. Although the air quality's...
Reading from Purple Air has an index of 21, which
shut up. There you go. Google trying to jump in. Thank you for coming here, Will. It's wonderful to have you here. If we wrap this back to... Where's it at? Change this sound effect and go to... Wait, now. Mike, Disclosure. How's it going, Mike?
It's going well, and I just heard from Bob. He's coming on the show. So you'll be able to read the intro, and he'll be joining us shortly.
Oh, that's good. That means I can go into... I don't need to change the title card in the show. We're not going to go back to that screen until we're over with, but either way, it's wonderful. Good to hear that Bob's going to be coming in the meet. I guess, I really want to go ahead and cover this video of what came in China and have Bob take a look at it, because I'd love to have his take on this particular piece. Hopefully, he should be able to see it, but let me just get that set up. So, in other news, what's going on in the weather with the news today in UFO land? Where am I at? Let me get back to... my bookmarks. According to this source, the UAP caucus are waiting to schedule the hearing when the JF whistleblower in the program comes out. That's what's been pushed back. That's why it's been pushed back to November. Okay, so hot tweet coming out from Bad Swan over on Twitter right now. One of the things to announce is, Mike, we've been talking about potential UFO hearings coming.
Yes, sir.
We were saying there's no way in hell they're going to be able to get that hearing in the House before the election.
The current election cycle, right? Correct.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that hearing in the House of Representatives is going to be, they've pushed it back to November, which has to be coming in after the election and all the drama that's going to happen after the election, because that'll go on for a week or two.
That'll go on longer than that. So
you got November 5th, and then sometimes after November 5th, after the election, and everyone is back in Washington, D.C., we're going to have a hearing. And it seems that one of the people who's going to be in the hearing this time, and apparently he must have been wanting to be in the hearing last time, is Rear
Admiral retired
Tim Gallaudet.
Tim Gallaudet.
Yeah.
Former head of
Rear
NOAA.
Admiral retired.
Former NOAA director, and currently active in UAP research.
Yes. Absolutely. If you... Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, do you think actually having Rear Admiral Gallaudet in will be a really good move? I think it will. I think he potentially could be better than the Grush and Fravor and it was Ryan Graves, wasn't it, in the last hearing? Being that his expertise is oceanographic. Is it oceanographic?
He was the head of NOAA for a period of time, I believe.
Yeah, so I don't know what people's thoughts on him being potentially forward, and I think Rick's already put that he's been asked to speak as well.
Rick was called to DC along with 5 other people, I believe, to go ahead and talk to senators. He wasn't brought in to testify or be part of a hearing, but he was brought in with a number of other individuals, of which haven't come out and spoken. This is from his aviary group that he's talked about many times on the show and in the back chat conversations. And the other 4 people that are going to be there are people that are unknowns to the community, but these are knowns for people who used to be in the intelligence community, right, Mike?
They are retired former intelligence officers, and I believe they're speaking with the staff, not with the senators directly, which is how it goes in DC.
Right. That's how it was last time when when David Grush went and gave, was it 8 or 10 hours testimony to the Senate? None of the senators attended, and it was only the staffers and lawyers who attended that.
Yes, sir. And it's going to be the same process and procedure with Rick and the group.
Right. So you've got that going on. We've got the hearing coming later in November. But then we also have a hearing, supposedly, which hasn't been scheduled yet, coming from Kirsten Gillibrand in the Senate, which is, we talked a little bit about this last night. Let's go ahead and retouch on this again. Don't get your hopes up. It's not like there's going to be a lot of information coming forward. We have the new Director of ARL. What's his name again, Mike?
Joe Kozlowski.
Joe Kozlowski, yeah, absolutely, good Polish guy, coming in, who used to be a part of the UAP task force. He's the new head of ARO. He's going to be coming out and dealing with a bunch of questions coming from his one of his number one supporters in the Senate, which is Kirsten Gillibrand, also has the nickname of Kiki. It'll be interesting to see where that's going to go. Again, we have a new person who's going to be basically in the job for about a month at the most by the time this next hearing runs along. So there's going to be some questions. I can't see how tough they're going to be, Mike, because he's just getting up to speed on what ARO is actually up to.
Correct. He's not going to have any actual information to offer to anybody. I don't know why she would be focusing on something like this at this time, but I guess she's scrambling to try to get something out there publicly before the election. Maybe she's looking for votes from the community. Maybe,
or, don't forget, Kirsten Gillibrand had promised us a hearing this spring after the initial historical report came out. But the report came out late. We finally got it. It was a joke. And Gillibrand never had that hearing that she promised. So
that's right.
Now, last time, I believe it was her and one other individual, so it's not like it's a big representation coming from the Senate. The Senate is very limited. It just seems they're really conservative in talking about disclosure, because even just case in point, if you look at the UAP Disclosure Act 2.0, which is coming up, it's something I'm going to point out, and I'll point out again and again until it happens. While it's actually being sponsored by Senator Chuck Schumer, who is the majority leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer is yet to make any kind of a verbal statement of any kind to any reporter. Kind of sounds like Kamala. About this particular subject. He'll talk on other things, but anything about supporting disclosure is not quite there. And it also sounds like there's not a great chance of UAP Disclosure Act 2.0 getting included unless it's being wrapped up into, what do you call it, an omnibus bill where they include it in multiple pieces of legislation. They're not going to allow it to come up for debate or anything. And it just sounds like it's slowly dying off. What do you think, Mike? Mike?
Yeah, sorry, I'm sending the link to Bob to join the show.
Oh, okay. We'll get it figured out. Oh,
We're
yeah,
working
Thomas.
on it.
Oh, there
And
he
here's
is.
Bob.
We got Bob Salas coming in. How about that? Can you hear us, Bob? We got your forehead. We got you. All right. On that note, back to the main topic tonight. Let me go ahead and do the intro on this. Okay. Where's it at? Tonight, we are beyond thrilled to bring you an exclusive, mind-blowing conversation that can change everything you thought or knew about the world and what's beyond. I want to welcome a man who's not just witnessed history, but has been at the very center of one of the most astonishing events in military and UFO history. Who are we talking about? We have retired United States Air Force Captain Robert Salas is in the building. This is the hero who was on duty during the infamous 1967 Maelstrom Air Force Base incident, where unexplained flying objects disabled nuclear missiles, actually by breaking some components in these missiles. My gosh, yes, that's right. UFOs and nukes, folks. Captain Salas has been breaking the silence, pulling back the veil of secrecy, and pushing for full disclosure ever since. One could say Bob Salas, or Robert Salas, is one of the original whistleblowers to come forward to bring out the facts on what happened. Tonight, he's here to spill the beans on the disclosure in the age of UFOs and nukes. More importantly, we're going to talk about where we're at with disclosure, what's going on, and get Bob's insight into this. So strap in and hold on to your seats, because this is going to be one wild ride through the unknown. Don't forget to smash that like button and share the stream with everybody you know. And let's give it up for the one and only Captain Robert Salas. How's it going, Bob? I think you're muted right now. Good intro, though. If you hit the little microphone thing at the bottom, it should unmute you. Oh, almost there. That was Andy muting himself. Oh, we'll get there in a second. So, Mike, yeah, I really appreciate you working with Bob to go ahead and get him on today's show. There he is.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We got you now, my friend. How you doing? Welcome back.
Doing great, Thomas. Doing great. Sorry about the delay. I just got the link, and I don't have X on my laptop, so I'm just using my little phone here.
Not a problem. It works fine, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Just recuperating from a little medical procedure, but other than that, fine.
Excellent. Great to have you with us today, my friend. You know, disclosure's been kind of moving along in the age of Elizondo, but we know this is not the Lou Elizondo show. I love that quote from you. What is this? The Lou Elizondo show? Back in the day when you were over on UCR and everything, and we really appreciate your perspective on everything, because, heck, you've been in this longer than I've been alive, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, I've been at this publicly for over 30 years. Of course, my incident happened in 67. So that's many more years. That's another 27 years, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a critical time right now. I guess you guys have heard about Putin's threats again. Threatening to go to war against the U.S. and NATO countries.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of crisis situation is what the warning was from ET when they shut down my missiles. By the way, I want to just correct what you said earlier. There was nothing broken in the system. There was no damage done to any of the equipment.
I thought it was one of the little relays or something that was burned out on the missiles, right?
Nope, not as far as I know. What happened was, and the Air Force has confirmed this part of it in a interim report that I have a copy of. They said this was an externally generated signal, meaning it wasn't internal to the equipment. There was no equipment failure per se. So there was an externally generated signal of a particular intensity, and I've got those numbers for any electrical engineers. But
Yeah.
the there's a piece of hardware called the logic coupler, which is part of the guidance system.
Right. Yeah.
It's actually an interface, if you will, between we had gyroscopes, accelerometers, etc. So when the missile is launched onto its target, there's a lot of calculating going on, and this piece of hardware does part of that calculation. In other words, it's like an onboard computer.
Right. Yeah.
So a signal was sent by the UFO to upset that piece of hardware. In other words, temporarily just send a signal to, let's say, recycle the power to that particular piece of hardware. And because of that, it detected this fault in the guidance and control system and shut the missiles down, because we don't want to have a missile launch without accurate guidance to the target.
So they targeted part of the electronics that were on board for the actual missile. They actually upset them, but it wasn't just one missile they took out. Was it, how many did they take out, Bob?
10.
10, yeah.
All 10 of ours. And that's been confirmed by another witness, Robert Jameson. He was the guy that was sent out there to bring those missiles back up on alert status, and he confirmed all 10 were down.
Now, do they actually have to go in and repair these afterwards, or did they, after a period of time, did the issue resolve?
No, they actually had to go out to each of the missile sites. The missiles aren't interconnected in a way that if one went down for any reason, the others would be affected. That's not the way the system works.
They're all redundant, meaning each one is its own individual piece. If you screw with one, you can't get to the other ones, right? They're isolated.
They're isolated. So, no, it's not like an in-series connection between electronics. So they would have had to send this signal to each of the 10 missiles very, very quickly, because we lost our missiles, bing, 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 hardly any delay between the shutdowns of all the missiles. Anyway, he had to go out there, this man Jameson had to go out there and go through a procedure of reestablishing the targeting system and the guidance system. And it's a kind of an involved procedure. Probably takes a couple hours at least for each missile. And that brought the missiles back up on alert status. So it took a day or two. I don't know exactly how long it took to bring them back up, but for sure they were down for a couple hours, no question.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's just one of those things. It just shows when we create stuff, we think we own everything. We think we control everything. But clearly in this particular instance, it's causing. Now, would it be more comfortable for you if I sent the link to your email address and you could join from your laptop where you don't have to hold your phone? I just want to make sure I'm not putting you in pain as being part of this.
I'm not in any pain.
Oh, good.
So I'm okay for now.
All right.
But if you want, send me an email, fine.
Yeah,
whatever.
We can keep it going here. I just want to make sure I'm taking care of you, my friend. We care about you greatly. You know, you're always a great person to have on the show and everything. If you look at where disclosure is going at today, it seems we've had ARO. We've had the director of ARO, who was Sean Kirkpatrick for a period of time, and someone who is really, if you want to call it, against bringing out the truth. And we have a new person who's been brought in to take care of it. Now, the biggest thing we haven't had, we've had a change out of the director, who's the middle manager, if you want to call it, leader over ARO, but the leadership that's over ARO hasn't changed. And because of that, do you think we're going to see a difference in how, like, your testimony, other information, or other stuff might be handled by ARL, or do you think it's going to stay the same as where it's been? Because I know you had some issues when you were talking with ARL in the past, and it just kind of befuddled you.
Yeah, I was amazed. I gave a 2-hour presentation to ARL. I sent them my entire PowerPoint presentation, which included copies of documentation supporting my statements. I had over 22 documents that I sent them. I sent the entire PowerPoint. I spoke to them for over 2 hours. And at the end of it, I said, I had a question for you guys. Can you answer this question? And by the way, I've got it all on tape. I taped recorded everything.
Good man.
Yeah. And I said, my question is, are you going to go to the Air Force as part of your, responsibility to check these things out? Are you going to go to the Air Force and confirm what I told you about these shutdowns? And the answer came almost directly as a no. And and then he went on to say that we have tried on other instances, other cases, like I think he mentioned the Robert Jacobs case, the one from Vandenberg. You guys are familiar with that, where a test missile was launched with a dummy warhead, and Jacobs had equipment that was.
This is the one where the missile was being shot up. It was going to the upper atmosphere. It was a test missile warhead, and out of nowhere, a flying saucer type object came close to it, shot a laser at it from here, came over here, shot another laser at it, came up here, shot another laser on it, at least 3, maybe not in that order, but then that caused that to tumble out of control and
that's correct.
Be lost.
Again, another demonstration that they could interfere with our nuclear program.
Right.
But I think they referred to that when they said, we tried to get some information from the Air Force on that to confirm it, et cetera, and no dice. It can't get anything out of the Air Force now.
Which that seems odd, doesn't it? They're going to the Air Force, and the Air Force has released the records on this.
Well, no. Let's back up. Air Force has never released the records on what happened to Jacobs at Vandenberg. Okay. Yeah. However, Jacobs can support it through his supervisor. He's got a letter from him, and but I don't understand why the Air Force cannot admit to these things. But I guess they'll have to go up higher to get the authority to direct the Air Force to release this information. I think that's what these new UAP regulations that are hopefully going to be signed this year will help do. Yeah. But I just heard this morning on a Twitter feed that there will be another hearing in November. Do you guys know anything about that?
Mike?
Yeah. Hi, Bob. Good to see you again.
Hi, Mike.
Welcome on the show, my friend.
Thank you.
And I hope you're feeling better from the procedure. Yeah, we know that Nancy Mace is supposed to be heading the proposed hearing coming out of the House of Representatives. They're shooting for November, but because of the election cycle that we're in the middle of, there's a very good possibility that it's mostly wishful thinking on their part. Nothing has been scheduled, nothing has been confirmed. So it's all potential at this point.
Okay. Yeah, Tim Gallaudet, or Admiral Gallaudet, stated that he was invited to participate.
Yeah,
in
do you mind if I go ahead and bring up and read really quick the statement from Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, retired?
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and bring this. Let me bring it up right now. Desktop, video, full guest. Here we go. Let me make sure this is small enough for everyone. I'll get to that one in a second. To read it, shrink down one more. Almost there. We'll get it 1 second. Oh, there we go. Hard to believe my interview on the Sean Ryan show now has 1 million views. I think it represents the surge of interest in UAP since the 2017 story in the New York Times about the United States Department of Defense's UFO program. With my expertise in marine science and technology, I have focused on the observation of these phenomena in the ocean, otherwise known as USOs, or unidentified submerged objects. Today, I was invited to testify on UAP disclosure before the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Oversight and Accountability in November. Not sure if Congress will pass the UAP Disclosure Act sponsored by the leaders Schumer and Senator Rounds, but I will make a case for it based on the right of the American people to know that we are not alone and the national security implications of that astonishing reality. That's one heck of a good statement. And while you outrank Lou Elizondo, we could say that Rear Admiral Gald actually outranks you as well. And it's great to see that we're actually getting someone to talk about USOs, because if you look back to the first UAP hearing that we had back in the day that was chaired by, oh God, who was it? Adam Schiff from the House of Representatives. When any question was brought up about USOs, it was quickly scuttled and thrown into the classified part of the hearing. We haven't heard the government talk a lot about USOs, considering the ocean covers a majority of the planet. There's not a lot of known information about it. What's your thoughts on Tim coming forward, Rob?
Oh, that's great news, really. I think he's a man of integrity. USOs is for sure a real thing. In fact, I think it was Commander Fravor, when he gave his verbal testimony before Congress, stated that he thought he saw the object come out of the water. It was either him or his...
No, it was him, not his wingman, Commander Dietrich.
Yeah, or Commander Dietrich, yes.
Yeah, no, it was him, Bob. And what he had stated is that when he got to the merge point of where the Tic Tac was spotted on radar, he noticed that it was hovering above sea level, and it looked like there was another craft bubbling under the surface.
Right.
And then the Tic Tac came up to engage with him.
Wasn't the object about the size of a 747, I believe he said?
It was something pretty large.
Oh, yeah. And it was cross-shaped. Or plus-shaped, yeah.
Yeah, so USOs are a real thing. You're right, Bob.
Absolutely. In fact, I don't know if you guys have heard of Susie Hansen. She's from New Zealand, and she's a longtime experiencer or abductee. And she's been taken to underwater bases. And I think she's a very credible person. But yeah, and I've heard about underwater events for many, many years before. So, yep, that's going on.
Right back, Mike Hanley.
Yeah. So, Bob, getting back to Malmstrom back in '67 for a moment, I remember that you and I were talking about this, and you told me that they did a diagnostic on each of the ICBMs at Boeing. They bench tested it, and they found that the logic coupler was shorted by -10 volts, which would take it and make it inoperable. And how far down below ground were each of those 10 missiles?
Well, the missiles themselves are in a kind of a silo, an underground silo. I don't know how far the nose is from the ground there, but I was 60 feet underground. So they were underground, definitely. What this object would have had to do was send a signal, a specific signal to a specific piece of hardware on each missile within seconds. But in order to do that, they'd have to penetrate what we call the sensitive information network. These are buried cables about 9 inches in diameter. They're triply shielded from electromagnetic interference. And so they'd have to penetrate that and then send this signal to a particular piece of hardware. Believe me, they know exactly how our equipment is designed and works. It was later proven to another man whose name I can't give out. He doesn't want to come public, but he had another incident where this object displayed very exacting knowledge of our systems, our missile systems.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And I'm sure you can attest to the fact that back in 1967, there was no known prosaic technology that any of our foreign adversaries were in possession of at the time that were capable of disabling our missiles like that, correct?
Absolutely not. We knew of nothing like that. If that had been considered an enemy incursion, we crew members would certainly have been debriefed about that. We got briefings every time we went out on alert. And I was there for 3 years as a missile launch officer. We never got any briefing, anything close to that kind of information. So, plus I confirmed with my squadron commander that this incident of mine was in no way a U.S. Air Force exercise of some sort. So, yeah, this absolutely unknown. And I don't know if they ever got to the bottom of everything that happened. Of course, there is some secret reports out there that Congress could try to get a hold of. I can lead them. I know the name of the report, et cetera, details about that secret report that has never been released.
Have you had a chance to see that report, Bob?
No, it's highly classified. Even the investigators couldn't get access to it.
So you mean almost 60 years later, it's still classified to that degree?
That's correct.
That is very strange. We're talking about technology from the 1960s. It's very odd. Yeah, and again, Boeing did a follow-up to check to see what had happened. And like we discussed the last time, they knew exactly where to hit the missiles. They shorted out the logic coupler by -10 volts, which is a short, which would make it inoperable. And there was no known technology at that time that would be capable of doing that.
That's correct.
There's no explanation for it. None.
Nope.
Even Boeing couldn't figure it out, right?
Right. This was just a bench test that they did on the logic coupler. And for some reason, they tried this particular -10 volts, a certain frequency. And that's what caused a moment.
Yeah.
A momentary short.
Yeah. Static electricity charge, something to go ahead and not completely destroy the components, but enough to go ahead and cause a fault in them that prevented those particular objects from those components from properly running. Now, Bob, how many feet thick were the concrete walls? Wasn't it like 3 or 4 or 8 feet thick, something like that?
Oh, all I know is they told us our capsule was supposedly would survive a nuclear blast above us. Now, I don't know whether to believe that or not.
Yeah. No.
You can see pictures of the actual construction of these things.
Yeah.
And it's made out of concrete and reinforced steel, that sort of
rebar
thing.
and everything else. And honestly, I'll say today, Bob, I'm not aware of any kind of technology that could temporarily stun a missile like what happened back in 1967. And we're talking 58 years later. I don't think we still would have that kind of technology to do that kind of disablement of a missile.
Well, of course, we don't have those details to
No.
evaluate this properly, but the Air Force and other agencies certainly should have.
Yeah.
So that's one of the questions that need to be asked. If there is another hearing, have we resolved this problem, or are we still vulnerable to UFOs shutting down our missiles?
Right. That's true. Have they built in some additional redundancy? But here's the thing. They build in redundancy for one thing. If something else happens again, I'm sure there's another area potentially they could find fault with. But it kind of shows you that they were just kind of coming out and saying, you think you're everything? No, you're not. We can take your stuff and shut it down. And it's interesting to talk about this, especially when we're at a point right now where there could potentially be another nuclear conflict coming out of Russia aimed at Ukraine and NATO because of our willingness to go ahead and give long-range missiles to Ukraine and allow them to use them for their full scope. What are your thoughts on that?
If Biden approves that, or if our country approves that, I'm all for it. I think we ought to support Ukraine in every way we can to defeat Russia as soon as possible. I think we cannot buy into nuclear blackmail from Russia. Otherwise, we'll be, dancing to their tune for a long time. They are the enemy. They have proven to be the enemy for a long time. It's time we took decisive action to defeat them. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you mean. If they're taking and hiding their weapons, their missiles, their fighters, their bombers outside of the range of where Ukraine can hit now, giving them the opportunity to go ahead and actually strike further in to go ahead and go after these strategic locations makes absolute sense to me as well.
And Ukraine has every right to do that because Russia has tried everything they could to destroy Ukraine's major cities and their army, and they're at a full-scale war with Russia. So this is not the time to back off.
Yeah. Now, someone in the chat is saying Ukraine has no democracy. They ban elections. Well, they didn't ban them. Right now, just like in the United States, sometimes when you have such a major conflict going on, you're not going to hold elections because, well, a majority of the people who are in Ukraine, we have over 2 million or 3 million who went to Poland, and a lot of people left the country. So it's hard to have an election when you're under a major war, an invasion.
That's right. Correct. I agree.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have some people in the back with their hands up. Let's start with Harold, and let's go to Nick and then Andy. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Good evening, Bob. It's nice to see you.
Hi, Harold.
Have you heard anything about the Langley incidents and stuff, and if there might be any kind of connection, you think, to what's going on from back in '67?
Can you elaborate on the Langley thing? I'm not sure. No.
Well, apparently, for a better part of a month or something, they were being surveilled by a bunch of so-called drones and stuff, and they had to actually move some of the tactical fighter wings out of the base and stuff, man, because they were worried about the air safety.
Yeah, what Harold is talking about, Bob, is there were drone, or at least that's how they classified it, drone incursions that occurred over Langley Air Force Base for several weeks at a time. They called it a swarm. So it was multiple objects, many multiples of objects.
Right.
And they were unable, with their current anti-drone equipment on the base, to have any effect whatsoever on these incursions. As a result of that, they eventually had to move their fighter wings down to Naval Base Oceana, and they had to evacuate. So we lost that battle. That's what Harold was talking about, Bob.
I see. No, I don't know any more information than you guys do on that. But it probably gives the DoD rationale for calling a UAP the enemy and developing weaponry against it, and but all in secrecy, because they're not going to. come out and give an extensive presentation on exactly what happened or what they've concluded or anything like that. So, again, we need disclosure. We need to be open about all this.
Yeah. Talking about disclosure, Bob, what do you think is holding back bringing out the truth from your perspective? I mean, again, you've been looking at this for longer than I've been on this planet. I would love to hear your insight on that.
Yeah, I do have a strong inclination here. The DOD every 1 or 2 years puts out a nuclear posture review. And ever since forever, that review has stated basically that our national security depends on our nuclear deterrence capability. So they have hung their hat on deterrence as a way to secure the country from nuclear attack. Now, that means the bigger, stronger, larger nuclear force we have in our inventory, nobody's going to mess with us.
Yeah.
Well, that may be the case. However, what it has done is it's, let's say, inspired other countries to become nuclear powers. So we're getting other countries that want to have nuclear weapons, and we've seen that over the Cold War period, right? And because of that, I think the situation just gets worse. It just gets riskier. So bottom line is they don't want me going public and talking about some perceived message from ET reminding us that we really need to work on abolishing all nuclear weapons, because that happens to be the basis of what the DOD lives on. You know, they're that's the bottom line. So, and I think that's why I haven't been called to testify before Congress. I doubt if I'll be called this time. I hope so, but I would certainly go testify if given the opportunity. But
I mean, your sighting back in the day, while it was back in '67, is still very important, because we're not just dealing with fighters and everything that are out on a practice run for stuff going on. We're talking about a direct intervention in our strategic nuclear arsenal, like you were talking about, where we've got the non-human intelligence going and
right,
screwing with it to a degree.
And again, I think the reason they did this is to send us the message.
Yeah.
Get rid of your nukes. And keep in mind, it was not just my incident. My incident was not a one-off. In fact, in the span of, 6 months, we lost 30 nuclear weapons during UFO incidents. In 1966, September of 66, Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota. Dave Schindele is the primary witness of that. Same thing, UFOs come over, shut down all 10 of their missiles. And of course, in March 16th of 67 was the Echo flight incident at Malmstrom Air Force Base. Again, UFO came over and shut down all 10 of his missiles. That was Walt Fiegel, Colonel Walt Fiegel.
Mm-hmm.
Is the main witness, and then my incident in March 24th, 1967. So within the span of 6 months, we lost 30 to these objects. And that's not the only, those aren't the only incidents. There were incidents at the Netherlands, Schosterberg Air Force Base, Rendlesham Forest, where UFOs came over, and just shone a beam of light on the storage area for the nuclear storage weapons. So there have been others also, and it's continued to at least 2018 that I know of incidents over nuclear bases. It happened again in 75. I could go on and on. I've got at least 13 in my book of these incidents where UFOs are somehow interfering with or sending us a message about nukes.
Yeah. You know, we've had a bunch of sightings here in Washington State over the Hanford Reservation, where that's all the plutonium that was made for all of our nuclear weapons and majority of our nuclear power plants. But we also have a site in Bangor Island, Washington. It's a Trident missile base, I believe, where they have for their Trident submarines, and they have approximately 1,100 missiles stored at that location. So where I live in Mill Creek, Washington, if you go ahead and I see UFOs flying across in front of my property on a regular basis. And if you look at it the long distance where I see them on one part of the horizon where I see they're going to, and I put that on Google Maps and I extrapolate that over a longer distance, that these UAP that I'm seeing, it's like orange drones or whatever, not drones, orange orbs that are going. They're probably 2 to 3 meters inside at least, or about 500 feet up, moving completely silently, just in a straight, slow direction that's too slow for any aircraft, but it's just something where it's unknown, unexplained for what it is. But if you draw a map back to it, it's coming right from that Bangor Island base where we know these things are, and it's just they've been attracted to nukes. They go after our nuclear power plants. They go after the places like Los Alamos and different points when they were designing this. And you're talking about them coming over the missile sites. So it's almost like an end-to-end coverage of that. But it's not just, if you want to call it, nuclear material that's used for weapons. There was a scatter map I saw from Gaipan about a couple of years ago. I haven't been able to find it again. I need to find it. That basically shows a scatter map of all the UFO sightings within France. It shows by their power. It shows by military, but it also comes up where they have medical grade nuclear materials that are brought to sites and then distributed out to different hospitals and stuff for handling X-rays and MRIs. Actually, they don't use them on that. It's more for X-rays, etc., and different imaging.
Yeah, and also I think our visitors, are concerned about us taking this weaponry out into space. You know, where we're all going to be, China, U.S., Russia are going to be building bases on the moon fairly soon. And are we going to be taking nukes out there to protect ourselves from the others? I don't know. But
well, I know there's an alliance between China and Russia. And I forget who the third country is, but now India is looking at joining that, where they've got Russia, who wants to, in this alliance, to go ahead and build a nuclear reactor for power generation.
To
put it on the moon.
Yeah, well, we're already using what's called RTGs, radiological thermal generators.
Right.
In other words, using some kind of radioactive material to generate heat, to generate electricity.
Yeah.
And we're already using those on satellites and other things we're sending out into space.
Yeah. Now, RTGs were used extensively in the old communist Russia, and after the wall fell and Russia basically fell apart, a lot of these RTGs are actually, some of them are still out there, but you're getting unsuspecting people going ahead and finding and figuring, I can go ahead and blast this thing, break this thing apart and recycle the materials and make money off it. And they're just basically frying themselves. I saw something on that just earlier this week, and it's just something where we've got these radioactive batteries, if you want to call it.
Radiological thermal generators.
Yeah. They look like giant CPU heat sinks from the outside. Yeah. Absolutely. Nick, you have your hand up, my friend. And thank you for coming again, Bob. It's wonderful having you here today.
Great to be here.
Yeah. Nick, you have your hand up?
Brian has a question he'd like to ask.
He does,
Captain
but let's go
Salas.
to
Can we
Andy
get it
first, and then we'll get to Brian.
Yes. Bob, did you see the reports that they declassified in 2019? Your incident, they classified the report in 2019. And did you see the report a few months earlier? Because they also declassified that report also. I
have not seen any reports that have been declassified about my incident. No, have you? I'd love to see it.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They declassified it like a few years ago, actually.
Yeah.
They declassified
We'll
it.
send you the links, okay, Bob?
Please do. I've never seen it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for that point. Nick is a special kind of guy who does a lot of good research on things, and Bob will make sure you get the information from Nick. Next person with their hand up, Andy. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, hi, Bob. I just want to say thank you for coming forward with your experiences from those of us here in the UK. I'm one of the international viewers and members of BAC, and also for any from Europe. Yeah, you said there's been not just your incident, but there's been numerous. We had the incidents at the beginning of last year, February last year, over in America. Now, I believe Malmstrom was another one that was involved in when these objects that were seen, the three objects. What's your opinions on that, if you have one?
I'm sorry. Are you talking about last year there were incidents at Malmstrom?
I believe, yeah. We had the three objects, and at least one of them was seen over the Malmstrom.
A year ago, February, we had an incident that went on where we had that initial Chinese balloon going across the United States, but then we had three other sightings that took place. One in Dead Horse, Alaska. Another one happened up in the Yukon in Canada. The third one happened right by Malmstrom Air Force Base. And then that third one was then reported the next day out over Lake Huron. So we've got like 4 reportings over 4 different days, but there was a bunch of different objects being picked up. And one of them, again, Andy's bringing up is monumental because it's by Malmstrom.
Yeah, well, Malmstrom is one of, I think, 3 bases where we still have nuclear missiles. And so it makes sense that we would have more incidents there. Right. Like I said, there's been a continuing number of these incidents throughout the years over our nuclear bases. The last one I heard about was in 2018, but I'm sure there are many others that we don't hear about for obvious reasons. But again, when these balloons or whatever you want to call them were seen or discovered, the DOD promised to, find out what they were and identify them, etc. But I think we're still in the dark as to exactly what we're dealing with there.
From a public perspective, I think we're in the dark. From a behind-the-scenes classified perspective, I think they have a really good idea of what it's not. They may know exactly what it is, but there was a lot of observations. You had flybys, but was it by F-16s or F-22s? I think it was F-16s at that time. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's move on to the conversation. Brian Pemble, you have your hand up, my friend.
Hi, Captain Salas. Thanks for joining us again. It's a real pleasure to have you. I wanted to ask, getting back to kind of the logic coupler, I don't know if you've ever heard of an incident that occurred at Loring Air Force Base in Maine in the 70s where literally there was a UFO, but a physical being came through the fence, went through the arc welded doors, and took the nose cone off of a nuclear missile. And And that's just like real quick version of that story. But I guess my question would be, because the logic coupler's in the nose cone, and you let me know if I'm wrong, in the nose cone of the missile, is there any way, did you have any physical intrusion, whether it be human or alien when the craft is there, that got on? I mean, I think those missile silos are 3 stories high, if I'm not mistaken, that they got onto the catwalks there and were able to manually disable it, or did this come from the craft itself?
Well, that's a good question, Brian. I don't put anything past their abilities, but the logic coupler is not on the nose cone. The logic coupler is in a section of the missile itself that controls the guidance of the missile after it's launched. So I don't believe the nose cone has any a logic coupler in it, but whether or not some non-human intelligence was able to remove the nose cone, I hadn't heard about that. So this is new information for me. I hadn't heard about it.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Sure.
Just trying to go ahead and Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there a possibility that they could deactivate those things and we wouldn't know about it or something, where we're sitting all this stuff and none of it's any good?
No, we'd know about it. We've got very sophisticated systems, very reliable, and we have very reliable ways of knowing whether or not they are ready to go and launchable, etc. So I'm not concerned about that at all.
So, for instance, if there was something like firmware within the system, Hollywood, and there was a checksum for the overall size of that firmware, not only would the system require to look at that information at one particular place, but you're going to have other places within the application that go and also certify the reality of the system that's running. Because the one kind of situation you're bringing up is, yeah, everything seems to be fine, but when it's actually in the air and it goes to do something, then it malfunctions, which is more of a conditional issue.
If they're that advanced and stuff, if they could pull something like that off, if we did launch them, they could deactivate them in flight even, maybe.
Well, they showed in the, again, Robert Jacobs incident that they could track the missile in flight and, in fact, fly quite a bit faster than the missile itself and the nose cone, and fly circles around that nose cone and deactivate it through some kind of a weapon they've got, laser weapon they've got on board. So, like I said, I don't underestimate the ability of these things or the knowledge that they have of exactly how our systems operate. Yeah.
Right. I guess in a lot of ways, what it comes down to is intention. And that's one thing that we haven't, well, out in the public sphere, it hasn't been publicly cleared as far as, I mean, I'll have to say it, even Lewis said recently, it's not like we're seeing any of these objects doing anything that's beneficial towards humans. It's either observation or screwing with the stuff we have around it. So from a malevolent side, there's nothing really showing that it could be benevolent, except for some stuff from ancient religions and such. To what we're dealing with now, it's more of neutral, if not malevolent in nature.
Well, let's keep in mind, these are not defensive weapons. Nuclear weapons are not defensive.
No.
There are weapons of mass destruction. That's what they are. And massive should be the word, massive destruction. Right. So we would not, if someone's afraid that they're trying to get us to get rid of our nuclear weapons so we won't have any defenses against them. I don't think that's an issue at all. I really don't, because why would we use nuclear weapons against a civilization, an advanced technological civilization that we don't understand? We don't understand, how we would go about destroying them if we had the opportunity. But we wouldn't use nuclear weapons.
Right.
I don't think.
we would hope. We would hope. Mike, what are your thoughts on this conversation?
It's a very interesting conversation so far. Bob is extremely knowledgeable as a professional and an expert in the military on these specific weapon systems. What's interesting, Bob, is they did a 60 Minutes report on the ICBMs in the United States, the land-based missiles. And it seems to me like they haven't really updated or maintained these land-based missiles because they considered to be obsolete. They're really focusing for offensive capabilities on the nuclear submarines being able to be mobile and strike.
And if you take a look at this is, I believe, something that came out from the U.S. government. I'm not going to hold to this, but this is a representative video showing that if Russia uses a nuclear weapon against a NATO country, then this is what's going to happen to Russia. And they're saying this is what would happen over the first hour of a potential attack going on. And it's funny, this video looks cool right in the background, but we've also got Russia coming out after that and saying, yeah, our hypersonic missiles can make New York in 30 minutes or less. So but they're showing all of the missiles that they're showing here are all coming from missiles. I mean, they're all coming from submarines. So it's no longer just the land-based locations. It's a lot of locations that are mobile.
No, we've got, no doubt, we've got nuclear weapons on submarines and other seagoing craft. We've also got air-launched ballistic missiles on aircraft, hypersonic also.
Right.
We've got advanced equipment in that regard. And we've got ground-based. Don't underestimate the ground-based.
No.
Russia still has quite a few, and we also in the thousands, ready to launch. As I said, we've still got about 3 bases that I know of nuclear weapons in silos, just like the Minuteman that I oversaw, and those can be used instantly. There's no delay time in firing those missiles off.
Yeah.
So,
that's one thing I'll have to reach out to is my brother-in-law is someone who worked when he was at TRW, worked on the guidance systems for the MX missiles back in the day. So I'll have to reach out to him and ask him what kind of redundancies that they were required to put in there from different systems to make sure the guidance wouldn't fail, considering it was an issue you ran into in prior failure points in the past.
Well, our missiles were inertially guided.
Yeah,
we didn't have any satellites, GPS or anything like that at that time in '67. It was all inertial guidance. So I'm sure that's been improved over the years.
Yeah. I do have a question coming to you from the audience. Bob. Do you think the military stepped in and controlled the narrative surrounding your UFO experience? Meaning, have they tried to put in anything and try to control the subject, the conversation? Have they put out misinformation, disinformation about it?
I can't point to a specifics, but I don't doubt that they would do that. They don't want me talking about this, like I said, because the DOD, the basis that they state for national security is our nuclear weapons capability of deterrence. But as I was going to say, the more and more nations now have nukes, which makes nuclear war more risky. Those nukes could be fired by accident. They could be used in many ways in local wars. And and the U.S. continues to improve these so-called low-yield or tactical nukes, and they could be used anytime in a conflict, such as Ukraine, such as the one going on between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, and if they are,
or Israel and Iran potentially.
Exactly, Israel or Iran. And if even a small nuke is used in combat, it's just going to open the door for other countries to do the same.
Yeah.
And very quickly, we'll be involved in an all-out nuclear war.
Oh, well, I hope not, because there's so many nuclear weapons that we've built, and there's so much damage that we can do to the overall world, for that matter, just putting this much radiation up and into the atmosphere, in addition to just vaporizing huge sections of the population, is never a step that I don't think any of us would ever want to take. Mike?
Yeah, what I wanted to say is with the conflict going on between Russia and Ukraine, the current administration announced that if, in fact, Russia had utilized any type of a low-yield tactical nuclear weapon against the Ukraine, that America's response would be not to initiate in kind due to the fact of the mutually assured destruction that would occur.
Yeah.
So the current administration said that we have the capability to militarily, without the use of nuclear weapons, target and completely destroy all Russian military and render them no longer as a threat. So we wouldn't respond if they actually fired a low-yield tactical nuke in the Ukraine or a NATO country. We would just remove their military permanently with conventional weapons.
Yeah, well, that's all good and well, but what would the Russians do? Like I said, they've still got plenty of intercontinental ballistic missiles at the ready, and we just don't know how far Putin is willing to go.
I don't think he's willing to commit suicide, Bob. Had he launched anything against the United States or used an ICBM in a major way, not in a low-yield tactical way, that would assure the destruction of his country as well as others. So I don't believe that man is suicidal. That's the one thing I think holding us back from the brink. At least we can hope.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can hope.
That's about all we can potentially do. Let me go ahead and take a look here and see what else I've got in my list of stuff. Hey, Bob, have you had a chance to check out Lou's new book by chance?
No, I have no interest in reading Lou's new book.
Okay. I hear you, my friend.
It sounds kind of petty on my part, but I've had experience with Mr. Elizondo on a more of a personal level, and
please share, Bob.
Well, I don't want to go into it too much. I'm not about. Anyway,
we don't need drama.
I have reasons other than what I've publicly stated for not trusting Mr. Elizondo, as far as I'm concerned. And so I don't. And I don't trust what he's written. And I don't think I want to comment any further.
Sounds good. Let's take that, push it off to the side. We've got the new UAP Disclosure Act coming up. We had one last year that was shut down pretty dramatically, and they've put the same one back up for passing again. Are you familiar with all of that? Do you think it's got, from our perspective, just trying to be realistic to our viewer base, they're struggling to get it through the Senate, which last year was a slam dunk approval. This year, they're coming down and having to fight to get it included in NDAA. In the House of Representatives, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, it proves the point I've been trying to make in my books, that there is indeed a highly secretive, highly well organized well-funded UFO secrecy cabal. In other words, a group of individuals within certain government agencies that are holding these secrets tightly. It involves the industrial complex, and they will do anything to maintain these secrets, and I mean anything.
Right.
So we have got a very difficult task in trying to get complete disclosure. I haven't given up on that possibility, but it's going to be very tough, and that's why little organizations like Arrow aren't going to get very far because there is a much stronger, higher level force, let's say, for maintaining these secrets.
Yeah. I guess they're just too strong to bring out. There's too much money involved, too much, whatever you want to call it, to want to prevent this stuff from coming out. I mean, I've heard from others that, RO, basically has a slim chance, not RO, NDAA 2.0 has a slim chance of getting through. We'll get a little bit from one side, but we're going to get a little bit from the other side. So really, it's not like it's going to be this huge leap forward to go ahead and bring forward the truth like we'd all love to see. There's been a lot of conversation going out in the public sphere regarding that potentially if we're going to get disclosure, it's going to come from private individuals. It's going to come from scientific organizations, etc. Any thoughts on that perspective of seeing the truth come from our scientists observing stuff versus the DOD saying, yeah, we've known about this for a long time?
Well, first of all, scientists, a lot of them are highly dependent on government contracts. I don't think that we're going to get disclosure so much from scientists, but from strong witnesses in front of Congress where, they're having the hearings, publicly shown hearings of strong witnesses willing to take that extra step and give details to the public. I think that will do more. I think I'm not giving up on disclosure because it's becoming more, and it will become as the years go on, a political issue, which is what Congress will respond to because their lifeblood is politics. They need to show that they are going to respond to public interest in this area, and more there's strong public interest. So I think the best route for us for disclosure is to get people like Admiral Gallet in front of the TV camera, like myself and others who are actual witness to these events, and let the public put the pressure where it belongs.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to look at it. So looking for first-hand witnesses. Mike, didn't we have a whistleblower come forward earlier this week that was also part of UAPTF, and her role in this was evaluating the content coming from satellites. So you've got, if you want to call it, observations that are coming firsthand from people that are there, but then you also have people evaluating the content that was recorded from stationary cameras or cameras in flight. What was her name again? What are your thoughts on that, Mike? And how could we dovetail this together?
Yeah, her name was Sarah Gam, and she worked on the UAP task force. She recently did an interview with Matt Ford, and I posted one of the key things that she was talking about that Bob also commented on, and thank you for that, Bob. I appreciate the comments on the Twitter post. But she made the same claims that Bob did when he went and testified before Arrow, and they seemed to bury his information that he had submitted to them. And then Kirkpatrick made a statement that they have no credible knowledge or information about the existence of any UAPs or incursions. and which was a lie because Bob, firsthand knowledge, testified before Kirkpatrick and Arrow. So they did have that knowledge. But Sarah Gam had come forward and said that when Arrow stood up and they were newly formed, that the work that the UAP task force had done for a few years, she offered, as others within the UAP task force offered, to provide that data and information. And at that point, Arrow refused. They wanted nothing to do with it. No part of it.
And she
No
was coming
interest
from the
whatsoever.
National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or was it the National Reconnaissance Office?
No, she was working directly for National Geospatial Intelligence Agency,
And that's where
NGA.
Grush was involved as well.
Yes, Grush was working there when he did his investigation for the UAP task force. He was based out of NGA. That's where he was interviewing the 40 different whistleblowers. So yeah, that agency was at the heart of any type of investigation into UAP from the government side of it. But then Arrow, that was tasked specifically to investigate this, has done the opposite of everything that the work that the UAP task force did prior to that, which Bob is also aware of and commented on. So yeah, we're lucky to have somebody like Bob that's still out there looking for the truth, like we all are, and transparency.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm not going to slow down or stop making whatever efforts I can. So my commitment is solid. I'm not going to back down now.
No, you've come too far, Bob. We all have.
Yep.
No, and I believe at one point there'll be no choice but to admit the truth to our citizens and the population around the world that at the very least, we are not alone on this planet. Just a simple truth. And that's what everybody's looking for.
Yeah.
And that's all they need to do.
I agree,
Right?
Mike. You bet.
So I think we'll get there. And we're on our way. But it's going to be a long road, and it's not going to happen around the corner. And now that we have this major controversial election for the presidency, which is not going to end soon, that we know from the last time, the drama that's going to come even after the election. Yeah, we're far from out of it, and it's going to temporarily throw a monkey wrench into the disclosure process moving forward until that's resolved. So we have a long road ahead of us, but we'll get there. All of us, including you, Bob.
Well, I hope so. I'm not getting any younger.
Neither are we, but we're in the good fight together. That's all that matters. We will get there.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Laura, do you have any insights as far as the work that you've done with remote viewing?
What I'm thinking about right now, I there's lots of things I can go after discussing this. There's a group that might be involved that Bob talked about. That's Tim Taylor's involved with as well, and I can look at that. I'm always digging up things. One thing I wanted to mention was, Bob, you had mentioned Susan Hansen, and I do have her book, Dual Soul Connection, and I kind of wondered what your connection to Susan was. Have you met her, and did you discuss any of her experiences?
Yes, I've met her many times, and we speak on Skype often. She's highly credible, like I said, and what's amazing about her is she recalls in great detail much of the incidents that she experienced. And a lot of us, I'm also an experiencer, but a lot of us, have to really work at trying to recall details. But she definitely recalls, for example, being taken to an underground base and even attending kind of a lecture by the ETs as to why they were there and what they were up to. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up her book, Laura. That is an excellent book. I highly recommend it to anybody, really.
Dual Soul Connection. Yeah, I was drawn to her as well. She felt very legitimate. And I know a lot of people don't like to go into this woo part of it, but what they're going to have to accept is the phenomena itself is very directly involved with the woo. The higher up you get with the scientists, the more they'll tell you that. And I've been to a few of their little conventions in Alabama, so I know.
Okay, without describing specifically what woo is, but I think we all know.
Yeah. Something to deal with a form of consciousness that can't be scientifically measured at this point in time. That
Right.
is something that's common in all life, but it's so advanced we just can't figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing things to connect things together. Hey, Mike, is there anything you wanted to cover on this anymore?
No, it's been one hell of a show and one hell of a conversation with Bob.
You know, one thing I do have. There was a sighting that came out. Everyone was covering it yesterday, at least on Twitter. There was a sighting over an airport, I believe, in China, wasn't there?
Yes, good point. There
yeah,
was
it's right.
an
It's
object.
literally
we
sitting
can
right
talk
up
to
in
Bob
here
about
in
it.
front of me. So let me get to this one here. So we've got a UFO sighting of something that looks like a triangular craft that was over the skies of China, I think, for a couple hours or so, wasn't it?
Over an international airport that they had to shut down for a couple of hours.
Yeah, let me get
Thomas.
the details on this.
I'd be real curious to see what Bob's thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so here's an initial shot of it going and just kind of, you know, it's not making any audible audio, but here there's a craft. The problem is you can't tell how, hold on, it's zoomed out here. You can't tell how far away it is, how close it is to the person, and what's actually going on, because you've got the actual object being shown, and then you've got it. But it is an interesting triangular shape. But as we see with drones, it's easy to create any kind of visual shape.
Right. Well, yeah, this is not the first time UFO has been seen in a major Chinese airport. And so I don't know what to say as to why they're doing that, other than to, again, display that they're here and
right
to as many people as they can.
And I guess you could also say that if they're coming out and doing it at this location, they're not just coming out over a major city, they're coming at a major transportation point that's going to cause an impact to human civilization. And it's something that, because they come at this location, there's a greater chance that they could be seen and acknowledged. Just thinking from a Star Trek perspective.
You know, I thought the O'Hare incident, O'Hare Airport in Chicago, was pretty significant. And yeah, you don't hear much about that anymore. You know, there's still no explanation. It was seen by air crew and many civilian witnesses, but we just don't talk about it. I don't know why.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of incidents. I'm not sure if there's not enough truth or pictorial imagery or things to understand. I guess back in the Chicago incident, that was back in, I think, 2010, wasn't it? Somewhere around there?
Somewhere around there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about 2010. Camera phones and everything wasn't that prevalent. So if that same event were to happen today, we would probably see a lot better captures and imagery from a lot more people, because there's a lot more people. Pretty much every single person who's out there has one form of another, a somewhat crappy to decent camera in their pocket, where back in 2010, majority of people didn't.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So I guess it's just going and having, you know, additional evidence, additional things coming up. So at least I just wanted to go ahead and share this sighting with you. Any last questions from the back? Pete, go ahead.
Thanks for your service, Bob, and thanks for coming on the show. Much appreciated. I've heard you say that after this incident, you never told anyone that you know, pretty much anyone, your wife or a friend or anything. Is that correct?
That's correct. I had to sign an NDA, and I got a very brief chance to read it before I signed it, but I remember the words extensive prison time, if you ever talked about this, at Leavenworth Prison. Those specific words were in this NDA.
Yeah, Leavenworth. They point that particular place out, huh?
Yeah, which is a federal prison. Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to ask, you know, kind of what was the sequence of events that eventually led to you being here with us and talking about it now?
Oh, okay. Well, the reason I came forward was in 1994. I was at a bookstore in Seattle and picked up a book called Above Top Secret by Timothy Good. And the book had a description of, on one page, it was the only page in the book, which was about a 500-page book, the only page that talked about UFOs flying over nuclear missile sites in Montana and shutting down the missiles. And that sounded a lot like what I recalled happened to me. So I thought, gee, maybe the Air Force has declassified my incident, because I had no idea this could have been any other incident that other than mine. So I took a chance and immediately went home and told my wife, who I hadn't told about this for whatever, 27 years. And then we decided to contact MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and get an investigator on my incident, and submit a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, to see if the Air Force had indeed declassified this, which I thought was my incident that they described in the book. The Air Force wrote back and said, this is still classified. However, since it's been so long, we're going to declassify it, and we'll send you some documents we have. So that's exactly what happened. As soon as I got those documents declassifying what turns out to be not my incident, it was the Echo flight incident that happened March 16th, 1967. But I thought it was mine, and I continued to think that for some months, years. I went public almost immediately because I said, the Air Force has classified my incident, and so I'm going to talk about it as a UFO event. Went on the Art Bell show, interviewed by Linda Moulton Howe, and the rest is history. So even when I found out from talking to my commander, when I finally located him, that we were an Oscar flight, not Echo flight, which floored me because I had no idea that two such incidents would happen within such a short span at the same general area. So technically, you could say I'm still in violation of my NDA by talking about this.
Yeah. But they haven't given you the all expenses paid vacation yet.
No all expense paid vacation. No, I haven't gotten that yet.
And they're not going to, Bob. So
no, I'm not.
It was a brave move to come. I know they have no concern about it.
No, I really don't, because they don't want to mess. They don't want to mess with me. I've got too much evidence. I've got too much evidence because I've done my research. I've written 3 books. I've spoken in 16 countries. And I gave an interview to Arrow. And Arrow wrote me in writing, of course, that my presentation to them was now an official historical record on the UAP. So I've got that in writing too. And they also gave me a sort of dispensation from breaking in.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. My sound effects application started playing automatically. Go ahead.
From breaking my NDA. So my NDA supposedly is not applicable now, but anyway, no, I'm not in Leavenworth. I'm speaking to you from my home.
Yeah, well, there you go.
My comfortable home, yes.
Well, that's wonderful. Andy, you have your hand up, my friend.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting, Bob. So if technically you're still in, you've breached your NDA,
yes,
and you've not been arrested or thrown into a dark dungeon somewhere.
That's correct. That's correct.
Potentially, all these other people who are saying, if I say anything, I'll get thrown in prison. Well, if they were to do that, then that would 100% justify what these people have been saying as to be true. And I'm not saying that what you're saying is not true, sir.
Well,
do they think, well, we'll just leave him be, and then people will think he's
I would not
a crazy old man or whatever have you.
I don't mean to interrupt, Andy, but I would not recommend anyone who has classified information about this subject to simply come forward, especially if they've signed an NDA. Because in my case, like I said, I've done a lot of research and have backup in the form of documents and individual witness testimonies about the veracity of my case. So I wouldn't tell every whistleblower that wants to spill the beans to come forward necessarily. Although I wouldn't discourage it either, but
yes,
I hope that's clear.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly from my layman as nobody who's ever been in the military, or I'm here because I've experienced things and one thing or another. But obviously, if these people were to speak and say what they knew, hypothetically, then if they were jailed, that would mean that they've actually spoken some truth. Whereas, if you looked at on the other case, they could say, well, we'll just class this person as crazy and we'll let them carry on. I'm kind of trying to play devil's advocate.
Well, the thing is, Andy, these people can be prosecuted in secrecy. Because they're under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is a different justice system than we have, civilians. So that's why it's very risky to do something like that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You bet.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Bob.
Yeah.
Interesting conversation in the chat, Mike. I'm surprised, but people are observant.
They are.
Sometimes it's reading between the lines, and they figured it out pretty well.
And it sounds like so did Bob. So that's an interesting conversation.
You gotta have fun with it, my friends. Gotta have fun with it. Well, anyway, happy Saturday, everybody. Bob, it's been wonderful having you here today.
It's been wonderful being with you guys. Like I say, I'm going to stay active in doing shows like this and speaking out every way I can. Because we have to keep fighting hard for disclosure. It's not going to be given to us on a silver platter.
No, never. But it's something we have to fight for tooth and nail, and sometimes you move forward, sometimes you move back. Hopefully things will start to pick up because it's been kind of stale for the last year. But it sounds like it could move forward, but it's still hiccups along the way. There's no clear path of getting there.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks, gentlemen. And Laura, thank you.
Yeah, stick around, Bob. We're going to end the show, and in the back, we're going to talk privately for a few minutes.
Okay, sure.
All right. Well, thank everybody for coming out to tonight's episode of Disclosure Tonight. What a great opportunity to share a wonderful time with friends, especially those in the chat. If I bring up the list of the participants, who do we still have out there right now? Let me go ahead and bring up that. Did I shut it down? No. Apparently I did. 2, 1. There we go. Let's find the right one. I want to thank the audience for the super chats we got tonight. Who am I talking about? I want to go ahead and thank Wildcat Mahone, Fat Frank, Anonymous Rex, Marcus and the Mandels, and FaZe Will. Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful love and support of everything in Disclosure Tonight. I forgot to click on it as I'm going through it. I like to go ahead and just say thank you, because it's one thing that we can all do, and be thankful for everything. Next, I want to thank Bob. Thank you for coming out here tonight. Great conversation with you, my friend. It's wonderful having you here, and feel free, like, the door's open. Any night you want to hang out and talk, we're on Mondays and Fridays. The door's open. We'd love to have you around, my friend. Also, then, I want to go ahead and thank our friends in the chat who we had out there: Ann Joanne, Andy W., Anonymous Rex, Banana Bowie, Craig William, Eli McGinnis, Freakish Preacher, thank you for the comments. Gaynor Andrews, Heiser's been around, along with Jan, Jason Brown, J-Cat, Kathy, Kelly Broten, Piercing Blue Eyes, King Bull, Marcus and the Mandels, Metal Gaming, Niles Guy, Reality Check, of course, SG Tets and the Chromosome Cowboy. Wait, there's more. Yes, and UFOs Arkansas, maybe. Thank you for coming out tonight. And not just that, I also want to go ahead then and thank our friends from the back today. Thanks for coming out today, Andy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas, Mike, and to Bob. Thank you very much for spending your time with us. So it's been greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Keep
Brian
up the
Penville,
fight.
thanks for stopping by, Brian. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, and thank you, Captain Salas, for once again joining the show. We really love your presence. Thank you.
Yeah. Hollywood, my friend Harold, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Mr. Salas, for answering my question. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Hollywood.
Absolutely. Laura Campbell, thanks for being part of this conversation tonight too, my dear lady.
Thank you. Another interesting day. And Bob, we will keep up the fight, so never fear.
All right.
Yeah. Pete Liebel, thanks for being here tonight, Pete.
Oh, yeah, I just hopped in at the end there, just to ask Bob that question.
And that's what viewer call-in's about. You had a question, you followed the link, you popped in, you got it answered. Are you happy with the answer you got, my friend?
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity from everyone involved.
Absolutely. What a great Saturday. FaZe Will, thanks for being here.
Yeah, awesome show, Thomas. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get now back to where are we at? Mike, Disclosure. Thanks for putting this conversation together tonight.
Well, it's my job as your producer and co-host on the show, and I'm grateful to you for that. So we can have people like our good friend Bob come and join us. Oh, yeah. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to you, Bob, one last time to say thank you for coming out here. Look forward to talking to you in the conversation after the show. Thanks again for the wonderful afternoon for spending it with us.
Again, thank you, Thomas and Mike, and for the show and for doing what you do, trying to get people informed and move forward. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, sir. On that note, as we usually say at the end of every episode of Disclosure Tonight, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everyone, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.